This recordings are amazing. Hey Dee,
Hey y'all.
before we get started, I do want to tell y'all, so we are trying to give everything you need. Hold on. So I made it to where there
Yeah.
will be a free structured group on Wednesday on starting in October on Monday. And she might be at church right now, but I don't know if many of you have seen the videos and remember Keitha who passed from the study group. She is going to do a structured, it would be donation-based group on Monday. So you'll have Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday. So you have no excuse not to know this stuff, right? Keitha is amazing. She studied with me. I think Keitha studied with me for 4 months, 4 or 5 months. And I do trust her to lead and teach because she understands and she understands it from how we get it, but she is also able to explain it in an easier way that makes it make sense. So she's gonna
Is that the
start
one with the
doing.
dreads?
No, Keitha is the one with the curls. She was from Alabama.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I saw her in one of your videos. Yeah, yes, yes.
Yes. So I talked to her. She had agreed to do some she wanted to give back and stuff too. However, she did pass the test. She do have clients. She do have time and things like that. So that's why hers will be donation based as well. Um, and then of course Wednesday we got Danisha. D, she gonna do some structured videos too. So like how we're starting here on theory is gonna have to be a two-part because there's so many theorists, but you have to know these theorists. You have to know like what umbrella they fall under, and really you can know them, you could recall them, but what I want you to do is apply them. So on the test, it's not going to be like who did psychoanalytic. You might get a recall question like that, but you would have to understand deep of everything of what it is, if that makes sense. So of course we're going to start with Freud. Why do we start with Freud? Freud was the whole reason why we're here. Freud was the whole reason why therapy is therapy, right? He was the one who started people sitting on the couches, just spilling their guts, right? So those are one of his techniques. Now, one thing important to remember about psychoanalytic therapy, it is very expensive. It can take from 5 to 12 years for someone to do a full psychoanalysis kind of therapeutic um approach. Now, that does not say that we don't do psychoanalytic therapy because we do psychotherapy. So when we do psychotherapy, all we're doing is some of the techniques. So that's why it's good to know the techniques that he used. He was big in insight. What that means, start asking about their past. How was their childhood? How was your mother? What was your relationship with your mother? All of those things fall into psychoanalytic therapy. If we pay attention to the vocabulary, that can give us so many clues. So, psycho, your brain, analytic, we're analyzing people's psyche, basically, right? So, Freud do start off with 5 stages. Somebody tell me the stages.
The oral, the anal, the phallic. Oh, as people like go oral, anal. Oh, as people phallic, like latency,
Yeah.
and genital.
Yes, and just what she said, this how we gonna remember it. Old as people like gold or old as people like grapes. Either one. I might be old because I like grapes and I like gold. So that's how you gonna remember these things. So why do we do the semantics? Because when you're taking your test, you do get like a little marker and a paper or whatever, and you're going to write your semantics just to remember the stages, right? Because it could ask you, what's the third stages in Freud's psychoanalytic stages? And you'll say, old as people like go, oh, okay, valid. All right. So now let's start talking about. the stages. So oral, when you think of the oral stage, right? Think about a baby latching on to their mother. They are sucking, they're swallowing, they're doing all the things that goes into your mouth. But what's big and what's important that I have to point out is once you're in the oral stage, when you are born from conception, your ego starts to develop. You were born with your ego. So that's why the ego is the reality principle. The ego is you. The ego is the person, reality. This is me. All right. So keep that in mind. Then we get to the anal stage. Anal, think of potty training. Okay. That's when kids do start to potty train. And what Freud basically said, he said the mother is the problem. With everything that anybody is going through, the mama is the problem. So when you think about the anal stage, that is if the mom potty trained a little bit too hard, the baby made a mistake, mom beat them until they make sure that they used it the next time, right? Or if they're being wiped and they're wiped too hard, they start to develop, oh, I really don't like this, whatever. So what happens is through all these stages, Freud believed if anybody become fixated, which means stuck at a stage, that's what we start to see as they grow older. So for an example, if someone is fixated at the oral stage, those are people who are overeaters. Those are people who bite their nails. Those are people who constantly have to feed their mouth, alcoholics, smokers, all of these things. Think about it. Every time they have to put something into their mouth, technically, according to Freud, they are fixated at the oral stage. If someone is fixated at the anal stage, then they might be an anal person. They might be stingy. They might, or it could be vice versa. They might be messy. They might have a, disorganized kind of way of doing things. All right. Then we get to the phallic stage. The phallic stage have multiple things happening here. All right. So the phallic stage, if you pay attention to the ages, is 3 to 7. All right. Think about a kid from the ages 3 to 7. If you have kids, you know when mommy and daddy is mushing up on the sofa or whatever, if you got a little boy, he want daddy to move away. This is my woman, you know? And then on the contrary, if the girl is a daddy's girl and she see her mama kissing her daddy, she gonna want to kiss too, right? So basically what he's saying in the phallic stage, there are these things that happen, which he took from Greek Bartholomew or whatever. He took a story and said, oh, this is why. So in the Oedipus stage, that is when the boy is secretly in love with his mother. Okay. He believes that if his dad found out that he is secretly in love with his mom, that his dad will cut off his penis. However, think about it like this. 3 to 7 years old, 3-year-olds mainly, right? Your 3-year-old lay on you, mommy, okay? And they don't mean nothing by it, but they start to feel and start to feel, ooh, what is that? That's my boob, and start to just rub on you, but not doing it on purpose. So that's where he kind of like get that from. In his mind, he believed that that's a sexual intent from the kid, according to Freud. Then you got Electra complex, which is girls. You remember that for Carmen Electra. She's a girl. That's the girl. Okay. Um, she something else happened in that stage that's called penis envy. And basically, what that's saying is she wants to not technically be in her daddy position, but being possessive over him and want to be all up on him. Okay. So when we get to the phallic stage, remember, it's a lot of things that happen in this phallic stage. Also something called maturationist, and that right there is when the boy thinks that the dad want to cut off his penis. Okay. Then we get to the latent. The latent stage is the only stage that is not sexual for Freud. Okay, that is the only stage that is not sexual. This is ages 6 to 12. So think about kids in elementary school, 6 to 12, they just looking for their crew. They just want to be around boys or be around all the girls. And that's when you get all these friend problems. How many kids come to me? She don't want to be my friend. Well, don't be a friend. I tell them all the time, but to them, friends are everything. So, this is when they try to find same-sex peers, social values, social things are very important to them around this stage until after they hit 12. They hit 12, they hit middle school. All right. That is puberty starts, all these feelings start. I actually like a girl. I actually like a boy. You start to feel what attraction is. Okay. So those are the explanations of Freud five stages. And what are the five stages? Throw them out there.
Oral, anal,
Or
phallic.
phallic, latency, and genital.
And how you gonna remember it tonight?
Old
Unless
ass people
people
like
like
those.
go.
Ass people
Like
like
so.
those.
There you go. There you go. Now, do you need to remember these ages? Not necessarily study it till you're blue in your face, but you kind of can get an idea of where they are once you think about the stories that I just told you. So we know oral, that's babies, right?
Yeah.
We know anal, that's potty training, 2 to 3, right? Phallic, 3 to 7, 6 to 12, and 12 and beyond. All right. Another important thing to remember about Freud, the whole purpose of psychoanalytic therapy is to bring the unconscious to the conscious. Now, he did this iceberg. Anybody ever seen the iceberg
Uh, and Rosenthal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
example?
And Rosenthal.
Okay, so basically what the iceberg look like, at the top you see the ice, right?
Yeah.
But really underneath there, that ice is so big and so
And
deep.
conscious.
That's where he starts to say how people are. So what happens is your unconscious, things that you are not aware of. People are not aware of the unconscious. Sometimes the way that they act and the things that they do, it stems from their unconscious, right? Then you got the middle part where the water kind of just peeps up a little bit. That is your pre-conscious. Your pre-conscious just means if I think really, really hard, I can remember, right? And then what's on top, that's your conscious. That's what you're aware of. That's what you know. So the whole purpose of the psychoanalytic therapy is to bring all of that stuff that's underneath, that's deep, deep, buried deep down, bring it back to the front because then you can understand why you do the things that you do. Okay, so that's why most of the techniques is insight, making them sit down and think about some stuff. Probably free association when they just throwing things out with no censor. You just throwing it out. Oh, why did you say that? I don't know why I said that. Well, let's talk about it. Things like that. All right. So remember when I said you are born with your what? You are born with what stage? I mean, not stage, what personality? Because he talks about three personality.
We're born with
Ego.
it.
You
The
born with
ed.
your ego. You are the ego. Okay. Now, because you are the ego, you got a battle. Okay. You got two things that you battle with. Now think about kids. Somebody said id. Yes. As a kid, the ids start to develop. Think about this. When kids are crawling on the floor and they about to stick their hand in that socket just because I want to, you tell them no, right? So they know, no. But the minute you turn around, they're gonna want to go and try to do it again. Then they but get electrocuted. But then you was told no, it was no, but that pleasure, I just have to touch it. I just have to do it. That is what the id is. The id is when you're trying to diet and that piece of cake is sitting there and you're like, you know what? I'll do it tomorrow. That's your id. It is something for pleasure. It is something you want right now. What I always like to say, and all my Bible readers, the Holy Spirit and your flesh is always at odds with each other. Your flesh is the id. Your flesh want anything, want it all. I don't care. I can stay up all night. I'll be all right. I'll sleep with him just one time. It'll be fine. I'll go hang out and party, and then you wake up in the morning and you feel like crap, and you taking the walk of shame. The walk of shame is the superego, which is your morals. Okay, so you got the ego reality principle, you got the id, that is your pleasure principle, and then you have the super ego, which is your moral principle. Okay, so when you're in conflict, you're gonna go either way. Either I'm gonna crash out or I'm just gonna walk away. Either my id gonna take over or I'm just gonna do what a bigger person would do. Okay? So those are the three ego states that you have to deal with. Another thing that is very important, because Freud is a psychoanalyst, and most people who follow Freud like to use the subjective and projective testing. Okay. So when you're doing psychoanalysts in the office, these are things that you can use to test. Okay. And what these tests really look like, and most of you probably seen like little paper when it looked like ink just splotted on the paper, and they have to tell you what you see. And depending on what you see, that's the problem you going through. So I might see an elephant, somebody else might see a bird, somebody might see a man running with a knife, who knows? But what happens is, depending on what you tell me or what you see, I am going to project what you're going through. All right. The TAT is the same thing. However, the TAT is a picture, and the picture can be a lady crying, right? And you would have to tell me, come up with a story. Why do you think she's crying? Depending on the trauma you went through, everybody's story is going to be different. So someone who went through trauma probably would see that picture and say, she crying because her husband left her, her kids there, they don't have nothing to eat, she just stressed out, got all these bills, right? Somebody who never really had to deal with that probably would say, oh, she crying because she didn't get the purse she wanted, and she's probably stressed out about that. That kind of opens up the mind of what someone actually been through, right? Or even talking about their childhood, because someone who would say, because she didn't get a purse, clearly you didn't go through anything before. Or maybe you were brought so much, or maybe you thought of it that way. But those are the two main tests that psychoanalytic therapists use, okay? Yes, Freud, but I say that because it's going to be more than just Freud that use these. Okay? Any questions so far before I move on? All right. Now, it's important to know who was followers of Freud. Erickson was a follower. Who else was a follower? Adler was a follower.
Margaret
Alfred
Miller.
Adler. More Rowe for sure was one. Margaret Mailer, she was more on the attachment kind of side, but she looked into insight too, so I can see why you say that too. And Carl
Yeah.
Jung,
Young.
Oh,
absolutely.
yes.
Carl Gestalt Jung was a follower of Freud. But before I get off of Freud, Freud also developed and created defense mechanisms. All right. What he said is, so while we're still here on ego states, the ego would potentially go through some anxiety, right? Because of the things that it did, because of what the superego probably have done, because of what's all unconscious at the bottom, your body would throw out a defense to protect the ego. Okay? So what happens is, for an example, I might get anxiety when um, people, let me give an example. I might get anxiety when I can't live up to people's expectations, right? So what am I going to do so people don't see my faults? I might overcompensate for some things, right? So for an example, if I'm very overweight, And my girlfriends are probably skinny and cute, and they are very active, and I'm not that active, right? And we go to the mall and we shop and shop and shopping, and I get tired. So I sit down and they continue to go. But because I feel bad, and they probably was like, "Oh, you don't want to come with us?" While I'm sitting there, I might see a jewelry store because I'm sitting here and they're shopping. I'm gonna go buy them both some earrings so they wouldn't notice what I was doing. So I'm overcompensating and I'm gonna buy them stuff so they don't see what I'm actually going through. So I'm overcompensating for it. Or a little man syndrome going on, so he gonna work out extra hard and be big so people don't realize he's short. Things like that, okay? So then you have the defense mechanism that is displacement. Anybody can tell me about displacement? Displacing feelings.
Shifting your anger to someone else.
Absolutely. I am mad. I am pissed at my boss. All right. I'm going to take my anger and put it on a safer target because I can't go off on him because I'm gonna get fired, right? And I need my job. So I might as well go home and um fuss at my husband. He got to stay with me. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it to him. Or I'll go ahead and probably be so frustrated and like Rosendahl said, kick the family dog, or things like that. I'm displacing what I truly feel about somebody else. I'm putting it on a safer target. Okay? Then you have, I'm gonna pull out the important ones because there's a couple of them. They got humor, and of course, people throw out humor when they're nervous, or they throw out humor to not talk about certain things. The class clown try to be funny in class because they really don't know how to read, so they don't want the teacher to call on them. So I'm gonna be funny, get in trouble, probably get kicked out. All right, that's a defense mechanism. Then you have identification. Identification goes two ways. One way would be I don't really have that family orientation at my house, so I'm gonna join a gang. Most gang members say this family, this my family, true family, and really know they're gonna rat you out the minute the police pull up. But that's all right. That's your family. Do your thing. Or you can have an identity defense mechanism if you are this person who really don't know who you are, so you introduce yourself to people as your career, especially if you're a doctor, if you're, a therapist, or if you are a teacher, mainly people who have, big things like a CEO or whatever. So they might introduce themselves like, "Hi, I'm Dr. Davis," or "Hi, I'm James, the CEO of this restaurant." Or things like that. And it's like, we didn't ask you that, but okay, okay. You want us to know you're great. Got it. All right, cool. Um, then you have the defense mechanism of projection. What is projection?
That's when we put our unwanted feelings on someone else as well. You guys always say, think about a projection, like a spouse cheating or accusing their partner of being unfaithful. So
Hmm.
they just projected that onto they're doing it, but they're projecting it onto their spouse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like to use if I me being who I am, everything for me have to work out of a calendar. I have to get alerts because it's just too much I got going on, right? But say I forgot to put something on my put something on my alert thing and I get to work and I have this meeting and it did not alert me and I'm mad and I because I was doing too much, that's why I'm mad. So when I get there and my assistant forgets to bring me coffee or forgets to do one thing and I tell them, "You're so unorganized. Like, how you gonna forget something so simple?" Really, I'm mad at me because I forgot I had this meeting and now I go and I'm unprepared, but then they do something, so I see what they do and then I'm gonna throw my projection on them. I'm projecting what I feel about myself because I was doing too much and I wasn't organized. I'm gonna say that to the next person that made a simple mistake. So now I'm projecting how I really feel about me because I was mad at myself and putting it on somebody else. Exactly. Now, introjection is the opposite. All right. So the opposite would be if I did everything I was supposed to do, right? I took my notes, I got my data sheets ready, and I got my PowerPoint and everything, and my principal called a meeting for the whole leadership team to come in and lay out what they did. Now, they didn't do theirs, but I got mines, right? I'm ready. I'm prepared. I even got my calendar. I'm like, what's next? The principal is upset at everybody else. She don't know you did yours yet, but she mad at everybody because everybody she didn't called on before she got to you said they're not ready yet. So she starts saying, we got to get together. Y'all have to be organized. Y'all have to do this and y'all have to do that. And because she's going off on them, I start to take it in like as if I'm in trouble too, when really I did what I was supposed to do. But I start taking in introjection of what she's giving off because other people was not ready. So I'm taking in something that don't have nothing to do with me. And I used to like to say that for I have a best friend and something about her and being around people who family members died. I swear, like if she just met you and you say your aunt died, she would be crying like it was her aunt. And it was like, you don't even know her, whatever. But she's an interjector. Like she just takes it in. And I'm like, I remember one time I just stared at her, I was like, you don't even know that lady. What you crying for? And she was like, it's just so sad. I was like, you crazy? But yeah, like that. That's interjection. Then you got rationalization when you rationalize everything, right? Um, but you rationalize you're wrong. So this is really what narcissistic people have. Narcissists have this that they justify their actions all the time. I If you would have just made the stuff, I wouldn't have been mad and punched you in the face. If you would have just did this, I wouldn't have to curse you out. If you didn't just do this, I wouldn't, rationalizing horrible behavior. And this is why I did it. Okay. Then we have regression. What is regression? This one is important. You have to know what regression
You
is.
revert back to your old behavior. So more like kids do a lot of regression.
Absolutely. So regression would be how would it look like in a grown person? If you see grown people throw tantrums like a kid, or if someone is really stressed out and they're really mad and they throw a tantrum but then ball down and start crying, they're reverting to childlike ways. Okay. Repression. This is important. What is repression?
It's unconscious blocking of painful thoughts.
Absolutely. That I like to remember repression is I really do not remember. I really
Yeah.
don't remember. Even if I try to think about it, I really don't. That can be two girls that grew up in the same household and both of them was molested by their stepdad. The older sibling remembers, but the younger sibling is like, that didn't happen to me. And she's like, yes, it did. It was both of us in the room. Now, I don't remember that. They really do not remember. Now, vice versa, suppression would be the older sister who just don't want to talk about it. I remember it, but I don't want to talk about it. I just don't talk about it. I don't bring it up. We don't say nothing about it because I'm just suppressing it. I am suppressing it. I am putting it down. That's in my conscious, but I don't want to talk about it. Repression is in your unconscious. You really don't remember it. Okay? Sublimation, very important. What is it?
Channeling unaccepted impulses.
Yep. Y'all know I like to give Mike Tyson for an example.
Hmm.
Mike Tyson was a good fighter. He was a good street fighter. All right. Real ghetto. Somebody saw that he was fighting real good. I mean, nobody defeated him. So, Don King, was it Don King? I think it was Don King. He told him, hey, take your fighting. take it out the street because that's gonna get you killed or in jail. You can make money. So he took him and he brought him into the ring and did whatever he needed to do. And then, of course, Mike Tyson, heavyweight champion of the world. So he took that negative and turned it into something positive. Somebody who liked to argue all the time, baby, you need to be a lawyer. Okay? If you like to debate, let's take it into law. So you take in something that can be negative, but it can also be positive in other areas. That's sublimation. And the person who really created sublimation is A.A. Brill. Okay. A.A. Brill worked with Freud, but that was one defense mechanism that he gave to him. So don't think that's Freud's stuff. That was his, just to let you know. All right. Isolation is isolation. Most people don't like to deal with things, so they isolate themselves or they isolate themselves from the situation. So, for an example, a guy, grandpa dies and he goes to work like nothing happened. He continue on with his life like nothing happened. He never had a chance to sit down and grieve. And many clients do that. They would just keep going, going, going until one day they just break down. That's also called isolation. Okay. Now, conversion is actually in the DSM. All right. Conversion is really a disorder. What conversion look like is there's a story about Maya Angelou where she was raped by this dude in the neighborhood, right? And she went home and she told her uncles and her brothers, all the men in her family. And what you think they did?
Went to go look for him to kill him.
They went look for him and they killed him, right? So to her, she feel like her opening her mouth got this man killed. So what she do? She stopped talking for months. So when you see selective mute, I don't know if y'all ever heard of selective mute people, something tragically happened to where they just stopped talking because they feel their mouth got them in trouble or started the tragic or did this or whatever. So it becomes a disorder because it affects their daily living, right? Anything becomes a disorder if you cannot work or if you cannot do what you need to do as an adult. So they will go mute for, she went mute for years. I said months, it was years, but that is called conversion disorder, okay? And then one that is very important is reaction formation. You'll see that.
Yeah.
Reaction formation is a form of reaction that's totally opposite of what the person really is. So,
Mm.
if I am, to me, I might be a lesbian, right? However, to everybody else, I am not. So, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna lead an anti-lesbian, gay, LGBTQ, all the ABCs that go with it, because they keep adding on letters and I can't keep up. So, I go lead a non against all these type people when really I am myself. So that's reaction formation. You are acting the opposite of what you truly are. All right? Deal? Everybody got that?
And on the test, I remember seeing it where the girl was really mad with her boss, but she
Mm-hmm.
acted like she loved her boss or something like that.
Yep.
So
You are acting the opposite of truly how you
really,
feel.
right. Yeah.
I miss hearing your voice, Miss Penny.
I've been studying, girl.
I know I text you. All right. Eric Erickson. You will remember Eric Erickson. Erickson has 8 stages because it's 8 letters in his name. All
Yeah.
right. Also, it's important to note two things. He is the only one that covered the whole entire lifespan. Okay. And it's also important to note that his first 3 stages are psychosexual, and then all the rest of them are psychosocial.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, Erickson, Freud, Piaget, Everybody who have stage, they are going to be called epigenetic people. Okay? Epigenetics. They focus on the genetics of what's happening to people and underneath and all of these things. Any one of them that have stages are called epigenetics. Okay? Now, start getting into Erickson. Somebody tell me what is trust versus mistrust.
It's when the baby is being born, and that's when the one caregiver is going to attach to that baby is going to attach to that one caregiver. But a lot of times for the mistrust to develop, if a premature baby has been born, they're in the NICU, and then the parents are, either taking care of other babies or trying to get things where now they're not attached to no one. They feeling a mistrust, but
Yep.
they may form a attachment to like that nurse or someone, so that's how the mistrust can look.
Yeah. Or it can look like the trust is the baby went home, was with the mama, just like Miss Penny said, was with the daddy, was loved, was fed. Every time they cried, the mama went in there. Every time she cried, the daddy got up. That's when the mama and daddy started looking like zombies because the baby just happy. That baby will learn how to trust. However, the baby go home and nobody pay attention to the baby. The baby
Hmm.
cry, he stay in the crib, diaper dirty, nobody paying attention. Then they start to learn to not to trust. Does that make sense? Being neglected. That's trust versus mistrust. Absolutely. So that's the way a baby start to learn if I can trust this world. Then we got autonomy versus shame and doubt. Somebody explain that to me.
Is that when the kid like to maybe autonomy, they like to do things on their own? For
Hmm.
example, he's in the he's in his pamper. I don't know. Give me a toilet train.
Yep.
And he's all excited, and then he has his boo-boo, and
Yep.
then he's shamed.
Yep. They are potty training and they get so happy and they want to show you everything they did, right? All right, we might could try some draws today. Let's put you on your little, your little Barbie panties, or I got boys, y'all, so they like dinosaurs and stuff like that. And then put your boxes on, right? Got your big boy drawers on. You go use the potty again. All right, yay. And you know, kids get the pee pee down before they get the number two down, right?
Hmm.
So you got the underwear on, they're having a good time. I taught my kids with the Fruit Loops, shoot for the Fruit Loops because I got boys, like I said. But then they start to do number two and they do it on themselves. Now they shame because they've been doing good all day. And now they got to come tell you, "Ugh, I just didn't do it, mama. I just, I messed my drawers up." And they walk around with a big old ball and you're like, what happened? But they become shameful, right? So autonomy is they take an initiative. They yay, yay, yay. And then shame and doubt come because they just, couldn't do it. They want to be independent. Or when they want to pour the milk and I could do it, I could do it. Next thing you know, all the milk everywhere. Then they feel shameful because now we got to clean it up. Or you probably just went crazy and was like, yeah, and I told you, let me do it. So that's where that come from. Then you got initiative versus guilt. I like to use the one that I'm going to use because it makes sense. Um, Especially if we thinking of the first three psychosexual, right? So if we thinking of Freud, oral, anal, we at the phallic. And you remember I said phallic is a whole bunch of sexual things going on in the phallic, right?
Yeah.
So not necessarily just being all sexual or whatever, but around this age, kids start to realize that their private areas have feeling. All right. They did not have to be touched. I only know that from experience because, like I said, I have boys. All I can do is speak for the boys. In the morning, they are very up. Okay. And I would take, my babies to go use the bathroom in the morning, and I don't know what happened, but my little one touched it away, and he was like, "What's that?" And I kept, me and my husband would walk in, and my son would just be touching himself, and we're like, "No, don't touch that." So what happened was he was taking initiative. He knew that it was a feeling. I want to feel it again. I don't know what that was. That is new. Let me feel it again until me and my husband told him, don't do that. Why can't I do it? Don't do it. It's not good. Leave that alone. That's not to be touched. Nobody, and that's when you start having a conversation. Nobody should be touching you. If anybody touch you right there, that's your private area. So all of those things start to come. And of course, they what? Feel guilty. Like, dang, I didn't know I was gonna get in trouble for doing all that. But think about it. All of this is a learning, social, psychosocial, and psychosexual. Okay. Then they grow up and go to elementary school. And now we in industry versus inferiority. Now, if you think about ages 6 to 12, they are getting into like really is you really start to see it when they're like in second, third, fourth grade, right? And the end of this is where they learn their competence, what they're good at. You know, they start to learn either I'm good in soccer, or I'm good in math, or I'm good in reading, but then they also know what I'm not good at. So this is the perfect time if you have kids to speak goodness into them because inferiority can take a toll and they think that they're not good, period, right? So it is good for them to understand what they are competent at. I know I'm good in math, so I'm good there. I'm not so good in reading, but then we speak to them and say, but you can get good with practice, right? But this is where they need to know what they're good at and what they're not good at. Okay? Because we don't want inferiority to sit in because that just tells a person that they're never good. So, how does this play in therapy? Somebody gonna come to therapy and think that they are just, the dumbest person in the world, don't know this, don't know that. That's when we start doing motivational interviewing and we start asking them, well, when was the last time you got a reward? Even if it was in first grade. What was that feeling? Then they realize I actually did something, I'm actually good. Okay. So that's what this talks about. Then we get to 12 and 20. Lord have mercy. This is teenagers. If you got teenagers, I'm sorry. This is identity versus role confusion. This is when what you wearing to school today? Wear that red shirt with the baby fat jeans. I'm telling my age. Baby fat jeans, I'm gonna wear mine so we can match, right? Um, this where peer relationships start to develop. This is when they trying to figure out who they like, what they like. I like fat boys, I like skinny boys, I like buff, green girls, I like purple girls, and things like that. This is where they start to realize, who am I? What do I actually like? Where do I want to go? So most of the time you'll get a scenario that will say a girl who just feel like she don't know who she is, what stage of Erickson would she be in? You would know she in identity versus role confusion, right? Because just like Freud, people get fixated at this stage. All right. You'll have a grown person still trying to figure out who they are. Okay. Then we move to 20 to 40 years old, intimacy versus isolation. Right here, start to find love. You start to see if this is the person I want to be with. You start to, oh, I might want to marry you, and things like that. Or so many people that hurt your heart that you feel like you want to be an independent woman for the rest of your life, right? So here is when it all starts to happen. Intimacy versus isolation. Either you want to be in love or you just don't trust nobody because of your trust versus mistrust. You don't trust nobody, so you're going to be an independent woman and all of this stuff. This is where this is stemming from. Then after you did that, say we did find the love of our life, right? And we start making a family, and then we end up here 40 to 65 years. Now, generativity versus stagnation means you are now pumping into your kids to be great for the next generation, right? At this point, we're giving advice. All right. We ain't T giving advice, ain't T ready to go home and do all of that, right? Um, and also what happens here is midlife crisis, which comes from David Livingston. That's where Erickson got that from, just so you know, okay? Also, what happens here, either we're setting legacies for our kids, we're trying to be financially literate, trying to build wealth, trying to do, have 529 plans for our kids to go to college, or we can be stagnated and say, them kids grown, they'll figure it out. So it's really up to you which way you're gonna go as a parent or however you do it or whatever, right? I'm okay where I'm at. They can do whatever. I'm not doing nothing else. I'm finished. My life is done. I'm not trying to go past no licensure exam. I'm good, you know. Some people are stagnated right there. Clearly we know we not stagnated. Deal? Then you got integrity versus despair. Now this 65 and up. So at this point, either we on the porch with lemonade and looking at our significant other and saying, we did the damn thing, didn't we? Look at them. Look, we got grandkids. We on the porch. We got a house. We did what we were supposed to do. And we just rocking away, right? Or we can be those ones sitting on the porch smoking a cigarette, nerves bad, saying, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. If I had this, I would have did that. I knew I should have stayed with Larry. Larry would have had, things like that. So that's where we coming from. Either it's despair or we did what we had to do. Okay? So that's how integrity versus despair works. Any questions? Everybody got it? So you see how Erickson went from first years all the way to 65 and plus. He's the only one that covered the whole lifespan. Okay? His first three are what?
Psychosexual.
Psychosexual. All the rest of them are what?
Psychosocial.
As you can see, people are learning things from being social, right? That's why they're psychosocial. Now, Adler. Adler was a follower of Freud. So I'm going to just say right here, he's talking about the insight. He's talking about social connectedness. He's talking about all these things. Why he talk about social connectedness? Well, let me tell you, he was a sickly kind of child. He had some kind of bone disease, right? So when the kids are hopping the fences and running back and forth, he couldn't do all of that. So that's why he understand what the inferiority complex is. He just knew what I wasn't good at. He never knew what he was good at, especially outside playing. He knew that the friends who can run and play, they gonna want to be clicked up. They gonna want to be together. They don't want to play with me. I can't run. I can't jump. I can't do nothing. I'm a break, right? So he focused big on insight. He talked about the inferiority complex. He talked about how important it is for the socialness, to be social with people. And whoop, he also talked about heredity versus environmental. So you're going to see this in different ways. However, when we speak of heredity, that is more of your what?
Nature
Nature's versus need. I mean, nature versus
versus,
nurture.
Nurture.
yeah.
Nurture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is saying basically everything you are born with, where, the things that you get, the things that you're born with and all that. Then you got the environment that paints how you grow up, how you do this, why you respond this way, why you do that. So nature is nature, your genetics, you were just born this way, and then nurture is what's happening around you that you can't help. You ever heard the saying of some people are the product of their environment?
Yep.
You could take them out the hood, but you can't take the hood out of them. Things like that. That's why, right there. Okay. He was big on birth order. First time they talked about birth order, that was him. He wanted to know what position you play in your family. Was you the oldest? Was you the second? Was you the third? The middle child? Was you the only child? All of those is a reason why you say it, because think about the oldest child, they basically the little mama or the little dad, they run the house or they cook for the siblings or they make sure the siblings are okay. I see kids all the time in the morning. They walk their sibling. I make mine walk his little brother to class. That's how I know. But they taking care of the younger siblings. So what happens then? That makes them a little bit more responsible. That makes them little leaders. It does. I'm the oldest. So my siblings call me as if I'm mama. And then they get mad because I act like mama too. So it's all the same. Then you have that sibling rivalry, which we know. So you ain't got to study that hard on that. You know what a sibling rivalry is. Um, the second child will always envy the oldest child. Not always, but according to this. Or they look up to their older sibling if their sibling did what they were supposed to do. Okay. Um, they're more of a jokester, everything funny. They have to be the life of the party, and things like that. They have to walk, kind of take steps into the older sibling shoes, because if this older sibling got in trouble for something else, then mama watching you to make sure you don't do it. So they kind of like always in the know, right? And then you got the only child that would be basically all of the qualifications that the oldest child was. Okay. The third or the middle, I mean, like the third child, they technically like the baby. So they get babied. They don't really take responsibilities to heart because they the baby of the family. By the time they were born, mama and daddy tired. So a lot of things slip, They're not as strict as they was with the first or the second one. So all of that, I think that's the generation we dealing with now. However they are in the world right now, that's the babies. Okay. They don't take responsibility. They don't like to work. They don't like to do nothing. I was like, I don't know what's happening. My kids, I mean, I don't know. My kids know I'm crazy, so they're good. Then we got Curl Young. Somebody tell me about Young.
Carl was the collective unconscious, and
And
he
what does
also,
that mean? Break that down for me. Collective unconscious. What he said about that?
oh,
Oh, I know your voice. You knew I was in on you, Lillian. Let's go.
um, so the collective unconscious was basically, well, it's wait, no, he wasn't the one. Don't get me to doing that
You
part.
got it. You got it. Who he
I,
said have it? Let's start there.
It
uh,
means that we all are there together. We all have
All of
this.
us have it.
Have
All of
whatever is going on in collective unconsciousness, we all got it. To every one of us, it's there. I'm
and,
sorry. Go ahead.
and then the archetypes.
and so then he talks about the anima, the animus, which anima is the female and animus is the male, and he talks about the persona, which is the mass, like basically like the commercial with the
The depression,
mhm, and then the shadow. And what else he talk about? Individualization. Is that him too?
he talk
No,
about extrovert, introverts,
Right, the little
all of those. Absolutely.
MBTI assessment.
Absolutely. So Carl Young, just like she said, so when she was talking about that enema and enemas, so the enema sound like a mama, right? Basically, he said in all of us, male and female, there are some tendencies that males have that they have tendencies of a female. So that's the enema, the mama that's in the male. The male have little female ways versus the enemas, muscles, like the male, females have that. And I think the trait that I have of a male, the animus, is I actually like putting things together. I don't know why. I like to do it. I like to screw. If something wrong with the toilet and stuff, I like to go and see. I like to change my own tire. Like, I don't know why. It's just the animus in me, okay? Um, if I paid attention, I can change my own oil. No problem. Like, I don't mind doing that. So he basically saying we possess, some things like that. So Ed, what's the female trait in you? Put him on the spot. Who else a man in here? What's the female
Oh,
trait? You can love, you can hug.
that's grace, love.
You
Yeah,
like to decorate.
nurture.
He might like to decorate.
You like to de yes, he might know how to
uh,
decorate, cook. Well, they say
I mean,
that
I do a little cooking,
a
but
little, yeah,
nothing
yeah,
too
you
big.
see? So that's the enema in you. All right. Young also used the Myers-Briggs type indicator. That is something important. No, he did not create the Myers-Briggs. It was a daughter and a mama, last name Myers, last name Briggs, okay? Not him. No relation. The Myers-Briggs type indicator was the one that gave us the results. If you've never seen it, I advise you to go and just try it just so you can see what it looked like. You're going to go and put all this information in of all these questions, and then it's going to spit out basically your personality, right? It's going to tell you if you're an introverted person or an extroverted person, if you're judgmental or you feely, and things like that. So that's what the Myers-Briggs type indicator is, and Carl Jung was the one who really used it. So these are the things that it'll come out and tell you.
Oh, Brittany,
Yes.
I wanted to add on Alfred Eller. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I do remember on the test they do ask like what a theorist uses the lifestyle assessment, and the answer is him.
Lifestyle is his words.
Mm-hmm.
Lifestyle, social connectedness, inferiority complex, anything you see with that word, that's going to be Adler. Okay, so lifestyle, social interest, insight is one of his. Oh, keep this here, guys. Early recollection, birth order, all of those things, that's going to be Adler. Okay. Now we get into Gestalt therapy. We'll have Gestalt, don't worry, I know your brains, and then existential, and then I'll stop, and then we'll pick up on behaviorists because I need a fresh brain. Behaviorists, they do something totally different. They're on a different umbrella, and you need to know it. But let's finish with these theories. All right. Gestalt therapy. I had a couple of questions on Gestalt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is very important to know that this is a form of psychotherapy. So I'm giving you all the psychotherapists, all the psycho things. What is psychotherapy? Psychotherapy, period. So the first thing to know about Gestalt therapy, and you will use Gestalt therapy so much that you don't even know. You'll use psychoanalytic therapy, you don't even know. You would even use some of Adler's stuff by just asking them, what are you, the oldest, the middle? Like all of these things come together. That's why you would be a integrative kind of counselor, okay? Integrative counseling therapy. All right. The word Gestalt means whole, organized whole. So what we're doing is trying to make the person totally whole again. I'm not trying to work one small thing. I'm not trying to work this thing. I need to fix you totally. So how can we do that, right?
Yeah.
There are It's important to know that it's by Fitz Pearls because you might get a question that asks about Gestalt therapy and who it belongs to, and then Pearls would be there. So you would know that it's him. Okay.
Right.
Now, how am I going to fix them to be whole? Well, in Gestalt therapy, they have so many techniques that you can do to help a person deal with things that they have not dealt with or cannot deal with either another person or another situation. Maybe that person died already, or they just don't want to confront them or do anything. Well, if you don't want to talk to that person, you can still talk to them here. They don't have to be here. Don't you know you can talk to them as if they're in this chair? Empty
Mm-hmm.
chair technique, right? So we use the empty chair for them to take care of their unfinished business, right? The unfinished business can be something they wanted to tell their daddy so bad, but this man died and now I can't tell him and I'm stuck with this and I just want to tell him how pissed off he made me and da 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 da. Okay. Well, if that's holding you back and you've been thinking about that for so long and you can't work because you're just so mad, let's get it out right now. Matter of fact, I'm actually doing this with my client because she has so much to say to her father-in-law, but she don't want to really tell him. So she said, "But I just wish it was a way I can get it out." And I was like, "There is." And she was like, "Is it?" I was like, "Yes." So we're doing this her next session. How cool is that, right? Um, so that gives her an opportunity to say the stuff that she needs to say, especially before he comes here. Because they're on their way. In December, her in-laws are gonna be making a trip here. This probably be their last trip because they're from India, and all kinds of things is happening, right? She's gonna get a chance to get that emotion out. So when he come, baby, it's already done. I already said what I had to say. I don't have to say anything to you, right? How? Because we're gonna keep training that she don't lose her cool. Um, Connectedness with others is another thing. The whole idea is to make this client whole, right?
Hmm.
So we bust out making sure that they are self-aware of certain things that they do. You know, maybe you didn't pay attention, but every time you talk, you put your head down. Why? Oh, I never noticed I put my head down. Yeah, you now I know we need to do some assertiveness training. Like you need to realize that you are amazing. Like, and just right there, I just did behavior and I just did some feminist therapy. Why? I just empowered her. I just told her we're going to do assertiveness training and I just made her aware of something that she don't do. I just did Gestalt. Three things in one sentence. Do you see how this worked?
Yeah. But
Now,
Brittany, you also showed her too, even though you allowing her to take this empty chair technique, you
mhm.
also telling her you got to take responsibility
Uh-huh.
also for your
For
own
your
feelings.
destiny.
That's
Yes,
right. Because
absolutely.
Gestalt emphasizes that even though he tells us we're in the here and now, he also tells us we got to take responsibility through our awareness of whatever we're going through. So,
Absolutely. And then even when they going through all of that, another thing she would always do, she would say, but then 3 years ago he did, and I was like, okay, let's bring it back to what's happening right now. But
mhm,
last 2 years, I always have to, okay, but what's happening right now? I always have to keep bringing her back to the here and now because she can reflect and always worried about the past. But I said, when are we going to be done with the past and just deal with what we're dealing with right now? We can't fix what that is in the past. We can do some techniques. However, once we do that, that got to be left there. What's happening right now? So that's why they focus so much on the here and now, right?
yeah.
Um, Role playing is the thing. I'm actually going to be the father-in-law. She's going to be her, and I might say something she don't like, but I want to hear what her reaction would be when I say that. And at that point in time, we are doing some healthy what?
So, well, if you're gonna intensify, you're gonna be exaggeration of an exercise for her.
So
Be-
what is she doing with me at that point? That can be healthy or it can be negative.
Transference.
There you go. We're using
uh,
transference. I'm going to be the father-in-law, and she might really get into character, right? I have to pay attention when I have to stop it, but we're going to do some positive kind of transference, all right? Um, it's experimental. Everything that you're going to do in Gestalt therapy is experimental. It is something we're going to do together. It's going to be things that we talk about. It's going to be some role play. It's going to be some chairs. We're going to talk about your dreams and see what that mean, all of these things. But that's what Gestalt is because I'm trying to make her whole all over again, right? So that's Gestalt therapy by who?
Fix
Rich
Pearl.
Pearl.
It's Pearls. Now we start doing some existential. Existential therapy is really what most people go to therapy for. Most people either, I mean, I know they come and say I have anxiety or I have depression, but then when you start working deep down inside, most of that depression, you're gonna have to do some existential therapy with them because the depression is coming from I lost myself. I don't know
Mhm.
what I'm here to do. I don't know what's my next move in life. I don't really like this, but I can't do that. I'm stuck in this position. I'm stuck. That's all existential questions, big life questions. So, what do we do? Well, there's three people who worked and they are existentialism. Whoops, what happened?
May, Franks, and Yalom, the three.
Absolutely. Am I back? Can y'all see? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So, um, Rollo May, who is the father of existentialism, he is the one that says that anxiety is actually a good natural part of being a human. Why?
Mhm.
When you really think about it, when we start to go through anxiety, I know it's excessive worry, right? But basically, what he's saying, if your body is having a feeling of worry or having a feeling of something, one, you can feel, two, you know something needs to change if you look at it that way. Now, whether you think it'll be medication that can just suppress that feeling of anxiety, or most of the time, if they give you medication, they're going to say this needs to be taken with talk therapy. And that's where we come in and do some existential therapy because we can start talking about why that anxiety is there. What are we worried about? Where did that stem from? Why are we here? So that's where that come from. But Rollo May basically said that. And he said repressing the anxiety can lead to mental illness. Okay. Then we start to talk about Viktor Frankl, who is what you will see when they start talking about existentialism. Viktor Frankl also created logotherapy, which means to find meaning or through finding meaning. So his big thing was finding meaning. That's what existential mean is trying to find the meaning of why I'm here, why I'm doing this, what should I do, things like that. So he was actually the one who survived the Holocaust. While he was in these concentration camps, the man was talking to people like, it's a reason why we're here. I'm pretty sure he got punched maybe twice. I would have punched him because I ain't trying to hear all that right now. They're about to pull me into this gas chamber, and you sitting here trying to find meaning of all of this and why we're here. It was kind of hard to do that, but he was the one who actually did it. So that's when he came up with logotherapy and finding a meaning through all of this crap, right? That's people who like to talk, yeah, you have these
Oh,
experiences, and I can say that now, but when
oh,
you going through
there.
some hard stuff, you're not
Hold
gonna
up right there.
say late, uh-oh. You're not gonna say later, while you going through the crap, you're not gonna say, I'm going through this because I know I'm gonna help somebody later. No, not while I'm going through it. But after you figure it out and you are where you are and you become that person, I can say right now, if I had to go through all that crap I went through in my life to get to where I am right now, I'll do it all over again. And that's what it means. You went through all this, but you got up out of it, but it was a meaning behind it. Somebody needs to hear it. Somebody needs to be pulled out of it too. So that's what that is. And then also it's just important to know that he wrote the book, Man Searches for Meaning. That was Viktor Frankl. Okay. Then you got Yalom. You're gonna see Yalom in what?
Group.
Groups.
In groups, and he have his existential things in there, but he was more of a group guy, but he's an existentialism, and he given four of the human conditions of how do we find meaning through all of this crap we go through. So when people realize that eventually you will die, right? I'm all right with dying. I know I'm gonna die, so either I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do while I'm here, leave a legacy and die, or just forget it. I don't care. Nobody gonna, whatever. But if you do that, you're never gonna find meaning for anything, right? Another thing of finding meaning is having the freedom, having the freedom from the burden of things or whatever, having freedom from taking this test, passing it, okay? Because
Amen.
after you pass it, you could throw all of this stuff away. You hear me?
Amen.
Yes. Um, then he have the isolation in there, and that's the isolation where it's the healthy one. You know how sometimes when you got to get your stuff together, you got to stop hanging with people that's not really doing nothing. You got to
Yeah.
stop going out all the time because I do actually have to go to work in the morning, or you just start making better decisions for yourself, right? So you start isolating it, and it's not nobody's fault why you don't want to talk to them. It's just I got to get myself together, right? And then meaninglessness, we know what that is. Some people walk around with no meaning, trying to get you away from that. So there you go, the freedom and responsibilities, death and morality, and then self-awareness of your innermost feelings and thoughts. But that's what existential is. And then there's a term that you're going to see. It's not going to be in here, so I'm gonna tell you. It's called existential vacuum. Okay?
Yeah.
That just means that the person is empty. They just feel empty. That's all. Okay?
Right.
Now, these are just the keywords of everything that we talked about. Everybody do know when Freud started talking about transference and countertransference, what that is, right?
Right.
Transference is
The
The
client.
client transferring their feelings onto us.
to the therapy. Now, it can be the therapist. It can be something you're doing that's experiential, or
Right.
it can be something where you start to remind them of their mother and they can start getting disrespectful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the countertransference is the counselor
Counselor.
having transference with the client.
Right.
Now, that can be, I don't like this person, they remind me of somebody, or that can be, I like this person, I can't wait till they get here, kind of deal. And if you start to feel like that, baby, you need to start thinking about transferring them over to someone else because it's not going to be helpful for you nor them. Okay? Free association means the client
They.
just says with whatever comes to their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically giving the therapist access to the unconscious. If they're throwing out words where it's like, why'd you say that? What that mean? Help me understand this. And then we start getting into deep in there, and then we start to find out some things, right? Resistance is resistance. At the beginning, some clients are resistant, especially if they're like, I never had a therapist before. I don't know how this works. I got that so many times. I was like, me neither. So let's try it together. Um, that right there, yes, they're reluctant to bring information and things like that. And about the third session, they telling you their whole life story. You know everything about their mama, their stepdaddy, and a grandma back when she was back in the day. So dream analysis, he likes to do the dream thing. Yeah, I had a dream last night. Tell me about it. And then start telling you why the dream meant that. And that's all Freud, okay? Now, when we part two, which I think is Keitha here now. I know she hopped in.
Yes, I'm here.
Everybody, this is Keitha. I don't know if y'all remember her from the videos, but that's my
Hello.
girl. I was telling them, I don't know, how long did we study together? Was it like 4 months, 3 months, four,
Probably closer to
five?
4. That
Yeah,
may,
4 months. And Keitha, she did something one-on-one with me too. And she went and
yep.
passed that test, Lord Jesus.
Yes.
It was work, but she did
Yes,
it.
it was
And
work.
starting in October, I've asked her because she can break this stuff down just like that too. Because I would have her tell me, and before she go test, and most of the time I would like to do that before y'all go test. I want you to run the study sessions, and that kind of she did her one last one before she went to go test, and just went ahead and blew it out the water. So on Mondays, starting in October, like I told y'all at the beginning, she's gonna start doing some structured groups. So I figured having three in a week, we should be rolling by that time, right?
Mhm.
To give you the best of the best and making everybody this is your last and first. If it's your first time, make it the last time. If it's your next time, it's gonna be finished at this point. But I'm thinking, I think before October, I'll been gone over the behavior or whatever. But like I said, y'all, this is a whole nother beast. It's a whole nother approach when we start talking about behavior therapy and stuff like that. So that's why I want your free mind. You see all of this? Doesn't mean you can't start reading it, but I did want to bring up uh Keita so she can introduce herself. I threw you on the spot.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. I see some familiar faces and or names, and then a lot of you guys are new. So it's exciting because just so y'all know, the way that I found Brittany was in a 3 a.m. panic of how am I going to pass this test and where are the people that I need to study with? Because I'm an external processor. I talk with my hands, I'll talk a lot. Um, and so I found her through YouTube. Like, I mean, digging deep, y'all. I don't know how I found her. And then she made a comment one time